If you're gonna fart on an airplane, the last thing you want is for the FBI to get involved. But that's what happened to this woman. Apparently she had some kind of stomach condition, but for whatever reason, she just couldn't hold it back. She let a silent one rip on the airplane, but apparently it smelled really bad because she then proceeded to light a match in an attempt to mask the smell. But the thing is, when you light a match on an airplane, people tend to notice that kind of thing. And some people were panicking because they didn't know that the match was causing the smell of the burning. And it turns out when you light something on a plane, you might cause that plane to have to make an emergency landing in a different city. And the FBI might get involved, which they did. FBI searched this plane for more than 3 hours looking for any kind of contraband. When they didn't find anything, they let the plane take off again. But this woman was not allowed back on, and she actually got a lifetime ban from all American Airlines flights. Because lighting any kind of fire on a plane is probably one of the dumbest things you can ever do. This is what the people who lived in the year 1900 thought the 2000s would look like. They thought that school would consist of throwing all the books into a machine and students would somehow absorb all the knowledge via headphones. They also thought that firefighters would be able to fly using specialized wingsuits, and that's how they would put out fires. Thank God somebody invented the fire truck. Another theory was that warplanes would look something like this, and war cars would have no protective barrier on them. They severely underestimated how destructive humans can really be, and that governments would be so willing to spend billions of dollars on stealth bombers. They also thought that we would learn how to tame and control whales and use them to travel the ocean. Imagine if they ever saw the submarines that exist in the world today. Lastly, they thought we would be racing seahorses. Imagine how much fun the sports gambling industry would have with that. The closest we ever got to that idea was in Shark Tale. You might feel bad for this guy, but I promise you're about to feel a lot worse for him. 17-year-old Martin Tankleff was sleeping at home. When he woke up, he realized both his parents had been stabbed. His mother was dead and his father was barely alive, and he'd pass away shortly after. Police were called to the scene, and of course the first person they started to question was Martin. One of the officers interrogating him told Martin that his father had woken up and told them that his son was the one who committed these stabbings. Martin at first didn't believe him, but then he thought maybe he blacked out and committed these crimes. The police convinced him of the story and he was coerced to confess. Martin didn't know that police are legally allowed to lie to him, and lie to him they did, and he confessed to a crime he didn't commit. He immediately rescinded his confession, but it was already too late. The judge sentenced him to spend the rest of his life in a prison cell just like this one. He would spend the next 17 years wrongfully in prison. His lawyers had been fighting for his release, and in 2008 they were successful. Martin was released from prison and given about $11 million in restitution. See that little straw-like thing that's waving back and forth from the middle of that giant pile of snow? That's actually the arm of a missing hiker. This is him successfully capturing the attention of a rescue helicopter that was looking for him at nighttime. That hiker was hiking by himself during the day in the Swiss Alps, when all of a sudden he got hit by a huge avalanche that trapped his body under the snow. He was stuck that way for 6 hours, unable to move any of his limbs except for one arm. He must have for sure thought he was gonna die. His situation was about as dire as it gets. So just imagine the relief that he must have felt when he realized the helicopter saw him. And I have to give a huge shout out to the people operating that helicopter. They were able to see a tiny little arm waving at them from thousands of feet away during nighttime. Just like finding a needle in a haystack, and that's exactly what they did. The man was rescued and he's unharmed except for a mild case of hypothermia. These two 12-year-old girls committed one of the worst crimes you will ever hear about. This is Morgan Geiser and Anissa Ware. These girls had a weird obsession in that they pretty much worshipped the Slender Man. And in their mind, in order to become a proxy for Slender Man, they had to commit a sacrifice. So they lured their friend Peyton Leutner deep into the woods, where they stabbed her 19 times with a knife and then left her there to bleed out. But Peyton was not gonna go down so easily. She couldn't walk. The only thing she could do was crawl, so crawl she did. And a few hours of crawling later, she was spotted by a cyclist who called 911 immediately. And Peyton was taken to a hospital and she survived and made a full recovery. As for the two girls, they were both declared criminally insane, and they were both sentenced to stay in a mental institution. Morgan Geiser for 40 years, Anissa Ware for 25, although she was released after 7 years served. Remember that one married cop who smashed 6 other cops and then got fired for it? The internet had a field day with her and her story because she was a freak. Now she's playing the victim and suing the police department that fired her. Her defense is that she was groomed into cheating on her husband with 6 people on different occasions. I personally think her biggest issue was that she had a problem keeping her legs closed. If she just owned up to it and took it on the chin, just like she took a lot of other other things on the chin, then I would actually have a lot more respect for her. But no, she just had to come out and paint herself as the victim in all of this. If she smashed one police officer, then maybe you say it was an accident. But she smashed 6. That is definitely no accident. The other part of her defense is that she had a troubled marriage. She's blaming her poor husband, but he's not the one who made her cheat though, is he? I don't see her winning this lawsuit. She was on a train mission with 6 other cops, and now she is getting railroaded by the same system she used to work for. This 12-year-old kid shot his mother 8 times, but I don't think he's actually an evil kid. This woman is named Sarah Madrid, and she and her son fought a lot. And according to reports, they were mainly over small things. One day, they had a fight over the kid not cleaning his room. Apparently, Sarah hit the kid a few times before she stormed out of the house. And when she came back, her son was waiting for her with a gun and 8 bullets in the chamber, which he emptied into her. By the time the cops got there, Sarah Madrid had already passed away. And as the investigation continued, Sarah Madrid's sister claimed that Sarah would often beat the boy and yell at him. She even said that Sarah never actually wanted the boy. Sarah Madrid's ex-boyfriend said the kid wasn't actually a bad kid, and they all seemed to blame Sarah. And as for the boy, they wanted to try him as an adult, but they couldn't because he was just way too young. So they kept him in juvenile until he turned 18. He has since been released from juvie with a new identity. Many pro athletes spend a lot of money buying really expensive things, and it's no secret that many pro athletes go dead broke by the end of their careers. But not Chad Johnson, who made $48 million during his 11-year NFL career, and he saved more than 80% of his salary. His first 2 years in the league, he was homeless because he didn't want to spend money on a house. He slept in the team stadium for 2 years because in his mind, he was already living his dream of playing pro football. It was a state-of-the-art facility after all. There were very comfortable couches to sleep on, and the best food you could get prepared by amazing chefs. He was also one of the best players in the league, so the team let him do whatever he wanted. To this day, Chad Johnson still wears fake jewelry because it looks exactly the same as the real ones, but is a lot cheaper. Even though he's a multi-millionaire, he flies Spirit Airlines, which is the cheapest airline in America. But one area he does spend a lot of money is tipping his servers. And he's become known for leaving $1,000 tips along with positive messages. If hell is a place on earth, it's within the walls of this prison. Welcome to Black Dolphin Prison in Russia, where about 700 inmates are treated like absolute dog water. They spend 23 hours every single day inside of their cells, which is locked behind 3 different sets of steel doors. When they are allowed outside of their cells, they're put into this stress position here to give guards maximum control over these inmates. There's always a police dog there too, just in case something happens. Oh, and the inmates are also blindfolded, so they never have any knowledge of the prison layout. And the only reason they leave their cells is to go into these other slightly bigger cells for exercise. And all they do here is just pace back and forth for 60 minutes. The only thing they're fed is soup, which comes directly to their cells. But if at any point you feel bad for these guys, just remember, they are the absolute worst of the worst. They've all committed unspeakable crimes, and it's why they're in this prison. And inmates know that Black Dolphin is a final destination. Don't let this smile fool you, because this is the same 12-year-old kid. This kid's name is Paul Henry Gingerich. He was a regular kid from Indiana, but he wanted to run away from home, along with his 15-year-old friend Colt. There was only one problem, and that was that Colt's father would be really angry at them for running away. So these kids decided that the only way they were going to be able to run away from home was if they gave Colt's father a few bullets, which they did, and he ended up dying. So those 2 kids, along with a third, were able to run away from home now. They got in a car and drove out west, thinking that all their problems had been solved. But they weren't old enough to drive, and it wasn't too long until a cop spotted them and stopped them. And that's when everything started to unfold. The 2 kids were arrested, and because Paul was the one who pulled the trigger, he became the youngest person to be tried as an adult at the age of 12, and they were sentenced to life in prison. They later appealed this ruling, and it went in their favor, and they were released, although they're going to be on probation for a very long time.